Hello everyone, myself Sanjay Jaiswar from Aegis School of Data Science. And today, on behalf of Aegis, I welcome you all for this particular webinar, which is on the career opportunity as a full stack JavaScript developer. So, the purpose of this particular webinar is to explore the opportunities that are available in IT industry for a developer who wants to pursue his career to become a full stack developer. And while while choosing this career option as a backend full stack developer or a full stack developer, there are a lot of confusions in the mind and a lot of dilemma in your mind which particular technology you have to select and which career path, I would say, or learning cycle that you're going to follow to become a full stack developer. And particularly we are going to discuss the our discussion would be more on JavaScript. So let's try to understand how you can become a full stack developer using your learning only one programming language, that is your JavaScript. So let's begin. So now we are going to start with our discussion. And for this, I have bought a small presentation for you. In this particular webinar, we are going to highlight some important points, and our discussion would be basically on it would be revolving around JavaScript and all the related technologies. Now, a week ago only, we have conducted one webinar that was on again JavaScript only, but for another technology. But in this particular webinar, we are going to explore the same JavaScript as an option for full stack developer, but with our main focus would be on main stack development. Now, before going to main stack development and understanding exactly what is main stack when we talk about the full stack JavaScript development, we need to understand some important terms and terminology that we use in this main stack development. And also we should understand what is the technology that was behind this and what is the history of that technology, how it evolved. So in this particular discussion, we are going to focus on those areas. So now, before even going to our JavaScript or any particular technology, we need to understand what is full stack development. So this term is not new for you now. Being an IT aspirant, a fresher graduate who wants to start his career in development, the term full stack is something which you are listening or hearing every now and then. In fact, every day. Even you have seen some famous advertisement in your television. They are also now using this term, a full stack development. So what is exactly a full stack development? So let's try to understand this with this example. Now, when we talk about the full stack development, if you can see the diagram on the screen, the diagram is divided into three parts, I will say. The first column is something called as user front end. Then in the center, you will see web server that comes in backend, and then we have a database that also comes in a backend. So if you categorize or if you just divide this diagram, it would be a user front end, and then we have something called as backend. Now, what comes in the front end? So as the word front means what, which you see in front of you. So if you see the diagram in the front end, you see we have something. We have a diagram of, say, a laptop, computer, a mobile, and some a tab. In fact, these are all your These are all your front end. That is from where you are going to use the application. So whenever you want to use any application, you use your mobile, your computer, your laptop, your tabs, and then you use those applications. Either it is a desktop application, it is a mobile application, or it might be on your browser. So you use your internet, you use your Chrome browser, Mozilla Firefox, a lot of browsers, even on your mobile phone and on your laptop and desktop. So those applications that are accessed using your browsers, there are also your applications, and those applications which runs on your desktop, or like your mobile applications, like your gaming application on all different other applications. So these are all different types of application that you use in your front. So these applications that you use are, every application will have some user interface. User interface it means what? You're going to interact with that application, or you're going to use that application with the help of these interfaces. Without interface, it is impossible for you to use this application. For example, if you want to send mail, obviously you're going to use your Gmail account, and you're going to open your Gmail on your web browser. Similarly, if you want to play any game, you're going to double click that, or you're just simply going to open that game, and then you're going to use that interface to play that game. So when I say front end, it is nothing but it is a view, it is a user interface that is created. So we have something called as user interface, or it is also called as a front end. That obviously this front end has to be designed, it has to be created. So obviously we are going to use some technology to create those user interface. So here if you can see here, they are showing that HTML and CSS is important for your front end designing. But HTML and CSS, when we are talking about your web application. That is anything which we are using on the browser. It's called as your web application. So to create that design or web application or web pages, we need HTML and CSS. Okay. But when we talk about your mobile applications or desktop application, technology may change, or it changes. But right now we are going to focus on your web technology, because today everything is on web, everything is on cloud servers. So to access everything on the cloud or on the server, we need web interfaces. So desktop applications are slowly now becoming stale, or if you can, I would say most of the organizations and most of the companies now are using their applications that are on the web servers. So websites and web applications have become more common. So two main things that you have to focus when we're talking about front end is your mobile application and your web applications. Now we have something called as your web servers, and then we have something called as your database. So these are your backend. This comes in your backend. Now when we talk about the backend, we say that all the data or all the information that you're going to share or access from on the front end or send from the front end are basically coming from your backend. Now when we say backend, we're talking about the backend servers. So we have some programming languages that are running on your server. It is server is nothing but a machine. So it is running on your server, okay, remotely, and those machines are going to process your data, which is coming from the front end, and it will interact with your database. Now database is a storage. When we say database, all the information that you want to access has to come from database or any third party. So all those information will be processed, saved, and managed with the help of your DBMS software, and then that would be done with the help of your programming language. So programming language is just a language which tries to communicate between the front end and back end. So when we say we have our backend, we say we have our backend server running and we have our database DBMS software running. But is it possible to create applications without backend? Yes. Then that kind of applications becomes very static. Static means what? Then we don't have any backend, we don't have any database, but simply static web pages that we access with the help of your web browser. So that is now if you have a good understanding about the front end and back end, obviously in the back end we can see here we need to know some programming language, and to work with your database we need to know about your SQL and NoSQL query languages, and the DBMS software which you are going to use is your MySQL, MongoDB, Oracle, and there are a lot of other vendors also. But since I cannot show everything on one single diagram, so just for an example, I have showed you some programming languages which we use on the server. These are called server-side programming language, and we have DBMS software. So we need to know all these technologies. If you are able to create your UI, that is front end, and if you are able to work with your backend and database, then obviously you are able to create one single application single-handedly. So you are a full stack developer. So you don't have to depend on many developers to create your application, but you can on your own create entire application from front end to back end. And of course, you can also use, you should also have some knowledge about your development and operation, which is today has become a very important requirement when we talk about the industry. So we are not going to talk about the DevOps, but right now we should know what is front end, back end, and so now after you have understanding about the front end, back end, and full stack development. A full stack developer is a person who can work on front end as well as back end. So let's move ahead and understand now what is exactly full stack development in terms of your JavaScript. Because in the previous diagram you saw, when we talk about the full stack development, we talked about different programming languages and database, and also front-end technology, HTML and CSS. But when we talk about full stack development in terms of JavaScript, so here one thing changes is that whether you work on front end or whether you work on your back end, everywhere you are going to use some technology that will be directly, indirectly related to your JavaScript only. So using JavaScript in the front end as well as in the back end. And therefore, JavaScript is a language which is completely, or I will say, a full stack programming language. What is a full stack programming language? That means with the help of JavaScript, not only you are working in the back end, you're also working in the front end. Now, in your college level or in your undergraduation or graduation level, as a fresher, you might have been not taught that much about JavaScript being used as a used as a server-side language. That is a language that can work even in the backend. Because till now we know that JavaScript is used only in the front end, and that too it is not necessary. When we talk about any web application, if you want to create any website, JavaScript is not mandatory. It is not compulsory. Only with the help of your CSS, HTML, and some backend programming language, you can create your website. But JavaScript was used in the front end. No one could believe that one day JavaScript would be used in the backend as well. So how that become possible? So that is important thing to know, and that's what we are going to discuss. So here, when we talk about full stack JavaScript, that means we are in the front end, we are going to use some JavaScript technologies like you have heard about the term React.js, Angularjs, jQuery, JavaScript, and also, of course, because it is a designing to create some view, we are going to use some HTML and CSS also. That is component that are built on HTML, and it is uses CSS for the styling. So basically, HTML and CSS is not going to go anywhere. It is going to be there. But when we talk about designing of the front end, that is structure, it will use React.js, Angularjs, jQuery, and JavaScript in the front end. Then in the back end, it is going to use something called as your Express.js, Node.js, and everything is JavaScript, as you can see here. Even in you can also build your mobile application with the help of your JavaScript frameworks, like your React native applications, your Cordova, and then PhoneGap. These are all different mobile. These are used to create your mobile applications. Again, they are built on JavaScript. So, and even your desktop applications. But as I told you, desktop application is something which is not in used very much nowadays. So basically mobile application, web application. So here we can see everything is JavaScript. Now, why JavaScript? And before even going for the further discussion about JavaScript, how JavaScript became your client-side language from your from front end, that is your from client side to your server-side language. Let's try to understand why JavaScript is so popular. Now, if you see the statistics, this statistics, it is not about the popularity of the language. This is about the usage. This is something that is obtained. This stats is obtained from the number of people who are currently using JavaScript in one or the other form. So if you see this, the most used programming language is C, and it is surprisingly C is the most used programming language because uh, if you talk about other programming language in some or the other form, they are going to use some components that are built on C only. Even Python, if you talk about the Python, if you talk about the Java, all these programming languages which are used in today, and they are more popular, they directly indirectly they are using C components. So C is there, and C is always going to be there. So C is the most used programming language. Then on second, you will see the Java, and then surprisingly, you will see the most used programming language is the JavaScript. So JavaScript is there in the market, and it was in the market, and it is going to be there in the market, and it is a long runner. So if you have any doubt that you should you go for your career, or you should build your career as a JavaScript developer, definitely it is a yes, big yes from us, because JavaScript is going to be there in the market for very long time. Okay, so let's not discuss much about other programming language. So let's discuss about the JavaScript alone. So now, as I told you, how your JavaScript became a server-side language from client-side language. So basically, JavaScript was invented by Brendan Eich in 1995. So the first time we used JavaScript was in 1995, and from 1995 to late 2008 or beginning of 2009, JavaScript was used as a client-side language. What is a client-side language? Client-side language means what? Any language or any script that runs on the user's browser only. That is anything which runs on the browser. So basically, browser, we call it as a browser engine also. So anything that runs on the browser, that code cannot be run out of the browser, and therefore it was called as your client-side language. But in 2009, Randall, he created Node.js. He wrote Node.js. That is about 13 years after your JavaScript, native JavaScript was in used. So Node.js, what is a Node.js? Basically, Node.js is an open source cross-platform backend JavaScript runtime environment that runs on a JavaScript engine, V8 engine, and executes JavaScript code out of the web browser. So now, to run the JavaScript out of the web browser, we need some engine. Okay, so V8 is an engine. Okay, this engine now runs out of the browser on any server. Okay, and the runtime environment is provided by your Node.js. So Node.js has an HTTP module. It is a runtime environment that runs on your V8 engine. That is a runtime environment. And now JavaScript can run out of the browser. So obviously, anything that can run out of your browser has to become a server-side programming language, like any other programming language. When we say PHP, when we say Java or .NET or Python, all these language can run on out of the browser on the backend server, and therefore they are called as a server-side programming language. So Node.js for the first time made JavaScript a language that can also now run on the server side. And now, because JavaScript is running on the front end, on the client side, as well as in the backend, the server, it is easy to interact with the database and the backend server. And that is why From 2009, the the way people used to look, or the programmer or developer community used to look at the JavaScript has completely changed now. Now, why Node.js is used? What are the application area of the Node.js? So it is just like asking the question why to use a Java or a PHP programming language or a Python programming language or .NET framework. It is similar to that. It is the question is kind of same, goes in the same direction. So Node.js is used to create real-time web applications. When we say real-time, that is anything, any data that comes in real time. Okay, so those kind of applications are called as real-time applications. So it is used to create real-time web application, I will say a dynamic application. Second is your streaming applications, like your live audio video streaming of data that can be done with the help of your Java Node.js. Then we have messaging applications, some chat applications, real-time chat applications, social media applications, virtual emulators, then multiplayer games. You can also develop games, and also some collaboration tools like your Gmail, your applications which can be used by multiple users. So that is called as your collaboration tools, and also to create APIs. Now APIs are very much in use today, because with the help of API, your mobile applications can fetch the data from backend. That is called as REST API. And also your web servers, one server can communicate with another server or a cloud server with the help of your API. So Node.js is used for all this purpose, and these are very popular applications nowadays. So that is one reason Node.js has become so popular. Now, when we talk about how JavaScript is used in front end, so let's try to understand how JavaScript is used in the front end. We have already discussed how JavaScript is used in the back end. So to use JavaScript in the back end, you should know Node.js. Okay. Now, to use JavaScript in the front end, obviously, for so many years we have been using JavaScript in the client side in the front end, in the form of jQuery, native JavaScript, TypeScript, ECMAScript, all those kind of JavaScript. So native JavaScript, TypeScript, modern ECMAScript, Ajax, and jQueries are some of the most used JavaScript libraries in the front end. And you have seen these JavaScript application here, all these in your websites also. So you have seen a lot of jQueries and native JavaScript being used when we create any application. Basically, what JavaScript is going to do, it is going to give some behavior to your website. Behavior means your website would look more a kind of live website where you can give some kind of animations and some kind of effects with the help of your JavaScript. Then there are many JavaScript libraries that are built by third party, means different vendors. For example, Microsoft, Google, Facebook are some of the leading companies who have contributed to develop popular libraries of JavaScript. Okay, and they are used for the front end development. Now, if you talk about your libraries or your frameworks, the most popular you already know is your React. First of all, jQuery. Then we have React, and then we have our Angularjs, Vue.js. All these are different types of frameworks, JavaScript libraries or framework. When we talk about React is a library. When we talk about jQuery, it is a library. When we talk about the Angularjs and Vue.js, they are the frameworks. So with the help of these different libraries and frameworks, we can create complete front end. That is entire user interface. The structure of the front end can be created with the help of these libraries and frameworks. So that is why JavaScript is used in the front end as well. Now, we need to understand one more important concept. That is your single page application. And single page application was possible only because of JavaScript. Now, what do you mean by single page applications? Usually when you create any website or when you use any website, you have seen there are different web pages. There are different web pages. When you click on the link, different pages in that web pages can be accessed. using your H reference, hyperlinks. So as an IT student, you know what is hyperlink. You have studied your HTML. So you have different web pages and you access all those different pages with the help of your links. So single page application is the application where you don't have multiple web pages. Try to understand this. This is very important concept. Now, it is a single page application is a web app implementation that loads on a single web document and then updates the body content of that single document via JavaScript API, such as XML HTTP request and fetch when different content is to be shown. So here what happens, instead of creating multiple web pages, we have one single web page or one single document, and whenever we want to access data, new data, we simply load the content dynamically with the help of asynchronously. I will not say dynamically, asynchronously. That is, the content of the document is updated. And to update this document, we make use of your XML HTTP request fetch. This is called as Ajax. Ajax means what? Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So with the help of your JavaScript API like XML HTTP request and fetch and Ajax, what we do, we simply fetch that data from the backend and update on that document. So we don't have to refresh entire page, but instead only one part or some part of that web document is reloaded or is updated with the help of that API. So that concept is called a single page application. And why is that done? Because if you have multiple web pages, whenever that web pages is requested, entire web pages loads. It takes some time to load, and then it requires some amount of your bandwidth, some amount of data. So if suppose that there is a website where thousands of people are accessing that website, and if that website has multiple web pages, so if people are continuously accessing different web pages, that many times the data is been requested from the server side, and what happens, the load on the server is more, the network traffic is congested, the speed of the speed of the website is gets slowed down. So to make it fast, we have a single page application, and that is achieved with the help of your JavaScript. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitter, GitHub, there are different types of websites we have seen. These are all single page web applications. Even your Gmail, if you have seen your Gmail is also a single page application. Now, when we are talking about your single page application, you need to understand, to create single page application, we can use Angularjs. Now, this is our very important topic which we are going to discuss. What is Angularjs? Now, Angularjs is a JavaScript framework. It is a framework that was built on JavaScript. Now, there is a lot of confusion between Angularjs and Angular, and there are some confusion and some I will say misconception in the people's mind. What is the difference between Angularjs and Angular? So that we are going to discuss here now. So Angularjs was originally developed in 2009, okay, by Misko Hevery at Brad Tech LLC. Angularjs is now discontinued free and open source JavaScript based web framework for developing single page application. It was maintained by Google and a community of individual and corporation. So when I say discontinued means what? AngularJs, the first version of AngularJs when it was released, okay, and therefore and thereafter Angular 1, 1.1, 1.2 to 1.5 and 1.6, it was called as AngularJs, and it was maintained by Google. Okay. But Angular 1.6 came up with a very new feature that is called as component based application. So you don't have to go much into the details of technology right now. Just need to understand, when AngularJs was developed in 2009, to AngularJS 1.6. 1.6 came up with a new feature called as your component-based application. So everything was component. Entire applications was break down into the components, and these components all together created one single application. So after 1.6, when component-based application architecture was created, AngularJS was no longer called as AngularJS, but in fact, it was only called as Angular. Okay. So now Angular after 1.6 came Angular 2, then Angular 3. So now AngularJS is no longer called as now AngularJS, but it is now called as your Angular. So what Google did, Google stopped the support for AngularJS, and now it is only supporting Angular. So all the versions that are that comes in the market, okay, they're all supported by Google, and this is maintained by Google. Though AngularJS was also maintained by Google and some open source developers community, but after 1.6, Google stopped the support for AngularJS. Now it is completely focusing on your Angular. Now current version is Angular 14. So some people say that don't use Angular because Google has stopped the support for Angular. So that is all wrong information. Basically, Google has has stopped the support for AngularJS. It is only providing support for Angular. So Angular now currently we have Angular 14. In fact, there are few more Angular versions going to come in future also with lot of different new features. Okay. Now some more information about your Angular. Angular is used to create front end. Okay. And it is used as a front end of the main stack. Main stack means what? Now, as our webinar is on main stack, so definitely we are going to talk more about your Angular. So when we talk about main stack, the AngularJS is the important part of your main stack development. It is one important technology that is used in your main stack. Okay. So when we talk about the main stack, Angular will be there. Okay. Main stack consists of your Mongo database, Express, built on Node.js, web applications. It is a web application server framework. Then we have our Angular itself and Node.js. So main stack completely stands for MongoDB, Express, Angular, and Node.js. And we have already discussed what is Node.js. What is we have to simply now understand what is Express.js. When we talk about the Node.js and what is difference between Express and Node.js? Node.js is a runtime environment created for your JavaScript, whereas Express comes with your built-in modules that will be used to work when we create any front end. When we work in the backend. So Express comes with lot of node modules, okay, that will be used to create our backend, or that is going to help in our backend development. For example, it comes with your routing features. Routing becomes much easier with the help of Express framework. Though Express is built on Node.js, you don't get confused by Express.js and Node.js. Node.js is a runtime environment that provides runtime environment for JavaScript to run on the backend. Express.js is a framework that is built on Node.js. Express.js just makes your development easy. So Express.js, what it does, it provides all different node modules to make your development easy and faster. For example, it comes with your routing features, it comes with your HTTP modules, it comes with our additional we can say is a template engine. It comes with lot of different features. We are not going to discuss all those features right now, but it makes your development much easier. So we have our MongoDB. That is when we talk about database, we talk about Mongo NoSQL DB. Then we have Express, Angular, and yes, Angular, as I told you, it is used to create single page application, and it is completely a component based framework. And which framework your AngularJS supports is model view controller and model view model architecture. It is combination of both. So that is about your AngularJS. Once again, what is main stack development? As I told you, Min stack stands for MongoDB, ExpressJS, AngularJS, and Node.js. Now, if we talk about the job opportunities, how much job is available when we talk about our uh, mean stack development. Sorry, I just wrote mon instead of mean, but it is for mean. So if you search for your job opportunity, if you even on your famous job portals, you will see there are a lot of vacancies for your full stack JavaScript developers. Somewhere around 45,000 for full stack JavaScript, and somewhere around 55,000 uh, plus for your mean stack development. So this stacks will help you to decide whether you want to go for full stack development in your main stack, that is your JavaScript. So that was about your job opportunities, and how you can that will help you to decide whether you want to start with your JavaScript development or not. Then last one that I want to discuss is, and most probably most of the aspirants they want to know is what is the job opportunity, what is the requirement, what as a beginner you should know to learn your main stack development. Uh, so for let me correct here itself, because it is basically a main stack development, and in your previous page also job opportunity for it is a main stack development. So when we talk about our requirement, I mean as a starter or as a beginner, how you can uh, how can you start with your min stack development learning part, and what is the requirement to become a min stack developer? So first of all, you should know very basics of JavaScript, then TypeScript, then ECMAScript. What is you should have understanding of JSON. JSON is basically a data structure, a different a data format used to communicate with your through your APIs with your third-party servers, and then we have Ajax. Okay, so JavaScript and TypeScript. TypeScript is very important when we talk about your main stack development, because what most maximum what your AngularJS use is your TypeScript. Okay, ECMAScript is a modern JavaScript. It stands for European Computer Manufacturing Association. ES6, ES13. ECMAScript you have to know JSON and Ajax. What is the concept of Ajax? Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Though not much in depth, but you should have the clear idea about all this scripts that is related to your JavaScript. Then second thing is you should have knowledge about your web technologies like your HTML and CSS. So yes, HTML and CSS is very important, because all the components are built on HTML using HTML tags, and styling is done with the help of your CSS. So to design any user interface, you have to know HTML and CSS, and of course to work with your database, that is DBMS software, you should know about your when we talk about MongoDB, you should know NoSQL database, and if you're working with MySQL, you should know SQL. But mean stack basically focuses on MongoDB. So if you know all these things, you can easily start with your main stack development. So this was all about your main stack development and how you're going to start with your main stack development. So if you have any question, you can definitely ask me regarding your main stack development. Okay. Okay. So anyways, if you still have any queries or any doubt, or you want to know anything more about min stack development, you can post comment below the video, and also you can get in touch with us through our official website that is displayed below your link. Uh, so that's all about your min stack development. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and I wish you all happy learning. Thank you very much.